Welcome to another episode of the Colm Flynn podcast. My guest today is Irish businesswoman, influencer, and all-round star Louise Cooney. Louise is probably best known for her fashion, beauty, and lifestyle Instagram account, with almost 250,000 followers. But she also has an activewear clothing brand called Clue, which she launched and operates herself. And in this podcast, we talk about behind the beautiful Instagram life, the challenges of running your own company.
So many things that could go wrong, that there's always something and you can never predict it, you know.
We talk about what made Louise once pack up everything and move to New York City.
It was so exciting doing up the apartment and, anything could have happened, and being really excited by the prospect of everything.
And how she realised it wasn't everything that she thought and hoped it would be.
Whenever you're meeting friends, it always revolves around a drink, which then as well is just not good for your mental health. It got to me.
And even shares her worst dating experience in the Big Apple.
I went back out and he was gone.
No, what?
He was gone.
But also reveals how she met her Prince Charming.
We just get on so well, we have so much fun together.
All this and more coming up now in my interview with Louise Cooney. Louise, it is good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's great to see you as well. It's been a while.
It has. It's been how many years? You're the mathematician here, so you do the counting.
I think it's been 4.
4 years.
I moved. Oh, would that be right? No, maybe not. Maybe 3.5.
We were sitting in. Do you remember where it was? The Lower East Side or something like that of New York.
We were in Soho, I think, if I remember correctly, in Ruby's, that gorgeous Australian restaurant. They do the best salads.
And the best. I was living in New York. You had just moved to New York. You were 26 years of age then, maybe?
Yeah, I was just turned 27, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And remind us, we were both sitting there full of ambition and drive and excitement of being in New York. And what had put you on a plane, made you want to change your life and arrive in one of the toughest cities in the world? What was driving you?
Well, New York is somewhere. I lived there when I was 22. It was the first place that I had a real job, after college. It was the first place I had a taste of independence. I'd spent, summers there when I was a teenager helping out with my aunts and uncles who lived close by to New York. So New York was always that place where I was like, this is my place where I can come and really live a different life and achieve those dreams. And the short time I spent there for a year when I was 22 wasn't enough. I always wanted to go back. And I spent a long time trying to get the visa, the O1 visa, which is basically meant I could work for myself over there. And I just really was so ready for a change, for a new challenge, and just to kind of shake things up, I think. That was really what I was after, kind of ticking some things off the bucket list and seeing what the world had out there for me.
That O1 visa is the one that I got as well. And it's like the holy grail, isn't it? Because normally to get a job in the US, you need to get a sponsor. So you need to convince a company to spend all this money on your visa. That another point is that you should get the job and not an American. But the O1 means you can work for anybody. So how did you get it? What did you have to tell the US to let you in?
My God, I had to get a lot of stuff together. It took a long time. It took the guts of a year to get everything together. And it was so, when you've decided I want to do this and you can't do anything, you got to wait. You have to get all your documents together. I had to put a whole portfolio of my work together. I had to get, I think it was 11 reference letters from people that I've worked with, people that I worked with in the past, that I work with now, that are colleagues of mine, essentially. And that was embarrassing to say the least, because I didn't know if I was going to get this visa. And the visa is called Extraordinary Ability. So and there's certain things they have to say in these letters. So I just drafted them, got people to sign it, but it was still so Irish of me. I was like, I don't think I'm extraordinary, but can you just sign the letter?
That's so funny. That's such an Irish thing too, isn't it? That you're giving someone this letter and you're kind of saying, oh, look, I know what this says. Colm or Louise Cooney is an extraordinary ability. She has incredible skills when it comes to this and that. And it's a whole page long glowing reference, the best reference you could ever give someone. And you're asking them to sign it. But you had to get 11 of them. And then I remember my portfolio ran to 100 pages.
Yeah, there it's really long, like, and every bit of work you've ever done, any bit of media you've ever gotten, any awards you've won, any bit of recognition, the more press and media, the better, because it shows that you're kind of recognized for what you do. And then there was the interview. Was that next? It was like there was a hefty fee with it as well. I think I paid 6,000,
Yeah, I paid six.
maybe a bit more all in, for 7 months, which was not a good money well spent, but I wouldn't take it back or change it for a second.
When did you get a referral for more information, by the way? Once you submitted it, they write back to you, which often happens, and they say, we want more. That's not enough.
Thank God, no, but I was so worried about that because, I had to give in notice. I had to find an apartment. I had to, book flights, all these things. So luckily I didn't. I got the visa and I was gone 3 weeks later.
So you had it and it lasts for 3 years and you used
Hmm.
it for 7 months. Um, when you went to New York, did you find it difficult finding an apartment, choosing the place, the neighborhood you wanted to live in?
Um, like probably in hindsight, I probably didn't go with the right area, but it was what I wanted. It was the dream, and I loved it. Like it would have been perfect for my first year, and I probably would have moved after that, just because Midtown where I lived, it's not really like a community feel.
Yeah.
It's always on. I find it very hard to like go into my apartment and switch off and watch TV and just relax and treat it like home. You know what I mean? So I probably would have moved, and I probably would have moved in with friends because I didn't consider how lonely it would be working by myself and living by myself.
Mm.
And I did find that hard. So I was eager to get set up. Like I had bags, I had stuff. And you know yourself, living in a hotel or doing the Airbnb thing, like that's expensive in New York too. So I was like, look, at least if I get somewhere, we can do that. We could just get set up and just dive straight in. And luckily, with the short amount of time I had, I'm glad I did that.
When I first moved there, while I was looking for an apartment, I stayed in a hotel on Madison Avenue, but I booked it for 4 months. And yeah, it was it was expensive, but I was trying to justify it. Well, it's a once in a lifetime thing, and I'm going to look for an apartment at the same time. But
Yeah.
it is such a stress, isn't it, trying to fit into that way of life? And when you were sitting there in your apartment at night, could you hear like the hustle and the bustle of the city? And that's what.
Yeah, 100%. Everything. You could hear everything. Like I used to vlog a lot back then, and literally there wouldn't be 5 minutes gone by in the vlog without sirens or screaming on the street or something.
And back to the question of why did you go there? What was the ambition or the dream? Was it to have a good time, relive your life in your early 20s? Was it to make it as an influencer there? Why did you go to New York?
It was probably like a mix of those things, like just to be away from everyone that I knew and kind of start afresh and do it by myself and build a career over there and see where that led me. And you know what? Like I think at that age as well, it's nice to do those things and step outside of your comfort zone and really like get to know yourself. And like I spent so much time by myself figuring things out and realizing what I like and what I don't like. And like it was so much fun. It was such a challenge and it was really hard at times, but it was so much fun. And I'm so glad, like there's only a short amount of time you really can do that in your life. Like I had no attachments. I had nothing holding me back. So I was like, why wouldn't I go?
Did you feel restricted by Ireland and the industry here and what you wanted to achieve and do?
To be honest, like I got such amazing opportunities and I still do because it's a small pond. But I think just at the stage in life I was at, I just wanted to be like anonymous and I wanted the challenge and I wanted that little fire in my belly that I had when I first started and to kind of push myself. So yeah, that I didn't, it's not that I felt restricted by Ireland. And like I think going away, I've learned to appreciate the small nation that we are and the opportunities that can come from that as well. Like.
It's interesting when you say that fire in your belly because I can totally relate to that. That when you go somewhere like New York, you have this renewed
Mm,
ambition.
energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a renewed energy that anywhere you go. So if you're in Ireland for long enough or any country, it wanes and it fades a bit, and you kind of settle into a routine. So when you went there, I remember we were talking in that restaurant that day. You were going to auditions, and or you had not auditions, maybe you were going to meet agents or talent
Yeah.
managers. Describe that process and how it was different to the industry in Ireland, because it is a whole other ball game over there.
It's so long since I've revisited all this, and like I can't really fully remember or put my finger on why exactly it was that I went. But now talking about it, I'm like, I remember that feeling like that New York always has given to me and probably still does, of like just feeling so inspired and buzzed and like you can do anything and you could meet anyone and any opportunity could come knocking. That's why I loved it, and that's you're kind of opening yourself up to, okay, let's see what happens. That's I think why I went back. In terms of agents, like it's kind of over there about being resilient, like in every sense of the word, because there's so many people so busy. Yes, there's so much you can go after, but there's probably 10 times more of that you're going to have to deal with no's, and you're going to have to deal with people being rude to you and people not caring about you and bumping into you on the street, and like all these things that make New York hard. But for that, the small bits that make it good can be really worth it. So when it came to getting signed by an agency, I had to have an agency sign me. Sorry, I forgot about this before I even applied. So they
Oh yeah.
technically had to sponsor me. But I said, look, I'm going to take care of the costs, because that it's kind of rarely something they would do, is cover the costs when they don't really know you.
Yeah.
So I had an agency sign all my papers, but I paid for everything. And then when I got there, they just weren't really like doing for me what they said they do. They weren't getting me very much work. And I said, okay, I need to try and switch, because I need to be making money here to cover my rent. And so I reached out to a couple other people and met them. And of course, like with that, there were some no's. There was some like, oh, you're not big enough, or, you're not, you don't have enough of an American following. And then in order to build the American following, you kind of have to Americanize yourself so that people can relate to you a little bit better, do you know?
Yeah.
So like I use Irish slang all the time. I have an Irish accent. Maybe some people find that hard to understand over there. And that was something I never was really fully comfortable with letting go of.
And it
Um,
seems crazy, Louise, because I remember I had the same thing once when I went into Good Morning America, the TV show, and I subsequently I ended up doing some work for them, selling them reports. But I remember sitting with one of the executive producers, and she was saying, "Yeah, it'd be great to have you on, and you're good at what you do, but." Like, it's Good Morning America, and you've got an Irish accent, and we know, but it seems strange and looks strange. But on the face of it, and anyone knows who's been to America, you go anywhere, you mention you're Irish, and they are just tripping over themselves to tell you about their connection with Ireland.
yes, of course. Yeah.
River dance, Celtic women, all these things are huge. St. Patrick's Day shuts down New York City. So you would think it would only be kind of an asset or your unique selling
Yeah.
point in what you did, but that didn't really play into it, did it?
Not really for what I did, because I had such a strong Irish base. I like, and even when I moved, my following grew, but it was like my percentage of Irish following grew. I was like, no, I was like, we want to grow the American. But obviously, it was just so interesting to people for me going over there, kind of living this like 20 something single life and going after it, and like it was like I totally get that was inspiring, because for me I look back and I'm like so proud of myself for doing that, like setting up an apartment all by myself, and just going and doing all of that by myself, and like nobody funded that move and nobody really helped me with that move. It was something I did off my own bat, and I think it's so important for a lot of people to live outside of Ireland and experience that different culture and grow and work in different markets and meet different people. And
And it's interesting just to go back to the audition things because I find it fascinating. When you were saying that they were looking at your Irish following, would they ask to see the analytics and say, okay,
oh
you
yeah.
have a couple of 100,000 followers, but we want to make sure that it's the kind of followers that will give value to our clients?
Yeah, of course. Like if it like that's fine if I'm in Ireland and working with an Irish brand and because they're marketing to an Irish audience or a UK audience. Whereas if you want a US brand to sell to you and only whatever percent, say 10% of your audience is American, it's a small percentage, it's a small market to reach. So it's,
Yeah, and it's kind of catch 22 because if you want to have the big American following, you need the gigs with these agencies, but the agencies are reluctant until you have the followers. So you're kind of
yeah.
in like, you're in this twilight zone.
Yeah, I think like had I stayed out there for another couple of years, that would have built naturally and gradually, but that it wasn't the case. And that was just my experience in my short time there.
Did you find it difficult in a way to go from Ireland, where you are Louise Cooney, and everybody in the industry knows you, and you've got great clout, and you've established yourself, and really well recognized and respected. Did you find it difficult to become anonymous, as you said? Like when you went into these places, you were
Mm.
another influencer coming from somewhere else in the world, and you were kind of down at a lower footing all of a sudden.
No, I didn't find that challenging or like I loved that. Like I think I still love that and I still act the exact same. And in a way, it's a nice way to see people for who they really are because they're not going to treat you like they don't know who you are, they don't know anything about you. Um, so yeah, I didn't mind that at all. And it's a nice way to like make genuine connections and it's fun. Like it's like I would love to have that like energy back of when I first started. Like anyone, when you just start off in a career, you most of the time have more energy and enthusiasm than when you're 10 years into it. Like, it just becomes a little bit, you're not gonna work as long or you're not gonna do the same things that you would have done. You put in your time in that sense. So I suppose part of that was challenging, but it was a fun challenge.
Do you find it difficult now? Because I was watching one of your videos on YouTube the other night. You did a Q&A, and your
Mm.
boyfriend Mark was away for the weekend, I think you had said, or he was out,
Oh yeah.
and you had
Mm.
a gig on. You were there on your own in your apartment, and it was late on a Friday evening, and you were talking to the
Mm.
camera. And again, I was watching it, and I was thinking, I wonder, does Louise enjoy and look forward to doing this, or because now it is your income, it's a business, and it has been for a while. Are you thinking,
Mm.
okay, I've done Instagram today, I've done this, I know
Mm.
it's late and I'm tired, and you were saying you had a gig the next day, you had to get up at 6 a.m. to drive to. So you thinking, but I really have to do a half-hour YouTube video. I just have to sit down and do this, put on the makeup, put on the smile, and go.
Yeah, I actually remember recording that video and it was hard that night, but
I
I
knew
love
it. I
YouTube.
knew it.
Yeah, like I took me a while, like just couldn't get the words to flow. But I love YouTube, and it's something like I love looking back on. Like my poor boyfriend, I make him rewatch things. He's like, "We watched this before." I'm like, "I know, let's just watch it again." I love that. Like it's like looking back on memories, and like it's so interesting to watch. It's like reading a diary at times, like how much you can change, and yeah, just like how your perspective can change. So it can be hard and it's work, but it's something that I do really enjoy and I wouldn't do it otherwise because particularly for YouTube, most of the time, like probably 95% of the time, they're not sponsored. I just do that because I love it.
Mm.
That's the most time consuming part of anything probably I do, but I just really enjoy it. So yeah,
And
I'm
the
lucky
ed,
that it ties into what I do and that I can kind of say I can give myself a good driver for doing it and that it allows people to get to know my personality a bit more and see more that I don't really feel comfortable sharing on Instagram just because or other platforms. It just doesn't feel right sometimes. It feels like you're oversharing and that's not what I want to do, but it's a nice platform that if people are going to go on and watch a half an hour video, it's nice to be able to share a little bit more with them.
yeah.
If they're willing to commit that time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That on your Instagram page, it's more kind of shop window type of thing. People are
Mhm.
used to that shorter, snappy soundbite style. But then if people want kind of a longer offering, they can go to long format YouTube. Do you find it
Yeah.
more difficult to grow an audience on YouTube than on other platforms?
It is now, yeah, it is now. When I was in New York and setting up the apartment and stuff, that was a real like thing for people to follow, so they would follow that. So yeah, I don't really worry about that too much anymore because if you did and you weren't growing from it, you wouldn't bother doing it,
Yeah.
and essentially I do it because I enjoy it. So yeah,
Do
yeah, it
you,
is harder to grow. It is. I think like the way social media has changed and it will continue to change. TikTok is the one you can grow on at the moment, and followed by Instagram if you follow all the rules and play the game,
yeah.
which which is consistent reels, with trending sounds, and like it can all just get very exhausting. I think if you pay too much attention to all that, it makes it not enjoyable. And I used to be somebody before all these trends and algorithms came in that focused way too much on likes and followers, and like it's just a miserable life when you're living in it 24/7. It's too much pressure.
Were you like that once upon a time, constantly checking the analytics and just obsessive about
Yeah.
how many people are
I
watching,
mean,
why less,
it's
why more?
exciting. It's exciting when you're growing, and especially when it's constant growth, you're like, yes, okay, my work's paying off. My work's paying off. It's like getting a pat on the back at
Mm,
work. And obviously, like all that work that I put in for years is still standing to me because I get booked for jobs because of my views and my follower numbers and the reach that I have that I built. But I think when you're living in that constant state of checking for validation, and it's draining because you a lot of the time can't control it. You can't control it, especially now with the way that the internet is. There's algorithms for everything, and
yeah.
you can't put your worth on a piece of work, a piece of content that you've created, because that's just not healthy.
But isn't it another difficult position that you find yourself in because it's not a thing you do as a hobby on the side. It's your bread and butter. It's your income. It's your brand. So
Yeah.
not that you're a slave to it, but you cannot worry about algorithms. But then at the end of the day, the people who hire you and your clients, they want to see results. So does it put pressure on you?
Yeah, 100%. That I said that only the other day to my friend Terry. I was like, it's a tough job we're in, because if I do two jobs the exact same and one performs really well, let's say I shoot them in the same light, I post them at the same time with the same ish caption. One performs really well and one doesn't. That's out of my hands, and I've done my work, and but the brand isn't going to be happy, and that sometimes comes back to you. Then you're like, I feel like I should make this up to them, even though it's not your fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to be said for being in like a service industry where you do your job and you walk away and that's it.
Old fashioned television. You put it out on air and you're like, I don't know who's watching or where they're watching. I don't care. Job done. You get the paycheck. There was,
Yeah.
I saw you on a podcast a few years ago in New York, the Long Haul Podcast, which is a fantastic podcast. You were sitting in a pub, Louise, in the middle of
Mm.
the day, drinking on the pod. You weren't drinking, but they were asking you about TikTok. And I thought it was really interesting because I think this is when TikTok was starting. And you were
Yeah.
saying, oh, I don't really have interest in TikTok because it's what in your words, you said in Ireland, it's what we call speech and drama. It's not enough just to be kind of an influencer on there. You've got
Yeah.
to, you dance, you act, you
Yeah.
perform,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they would call in America, theater kids.
Yes.
Um,
It
did,
definitely was like that. Yeah.
has it
I think
changed?
I think it has changed. I think there is the type of content that you can post is kind of open. It's definitely more chatty and stuff. I still haven't fully gotten into it though. I think I'm just a bit old. Just a bit old. But yeah, it's like you need to come on and do like I suppose maybe what I would do on YouTube in shorter form. And I have been thinking about it and I'm like, I know I could do it. It's just about I suppose that fear of failure. What if I do it wrong? Or what if I'm not doing it the way everyone else does it? Or.
But also, it's just another thing you've got to cut for because if you take one piece of content, you have to cut it one way for YouTube, another way for Instagram, and then you'll have to like readjust it a small bit again for TikTok. It's just like another layer of work in your day.
Yeah. And like as well as that, like if social media isn't what I'm doing full time. I have my activewear business and I have 67 Spirits, which is my wine spritzer, and like that stuff. And I also have a podcast, and that stuff takes up so much time as well that say if I was doing it full time, I'd be like, you have absolutely zero excuse. And but it's just like time is hard sometimes to find it and still like live a balanced life.
Louise, before I ask you about your brands and the businesses that you're running at the moment, I want to talk to you about amore, love. Because I'm here in Rome, and the last time we met, you were a single Pringle in New York City.
Yeah.
And I was asking you about have you had any chance to go on dates with American men and what it was like. And I just couldn't, I remember I couldn't stop laughing listening to some of the stories you were telling me. Now I know you're with Mark, and we're going to talk about Mark in a second. But was part of the reason of going to New York as well to look for someone? Were you excited about that too, or Was that any part of it?
No, it wasn't really to look for somebody, but I was excited about the prospect of dating with the fresh slate where nobody knew me or anything like that. It was exciting, like something completely different and new. And
Were you sick of dating
yeah,
Irish guys at that stage?
I hadn't actually dated very many, to be fair. But I suppose with what I did, I was just a bit nervous about it because I didn't like, and it was silly looking back on it, but I just was at the time. I was just a bit like, you know, I put so much of my life online. I don't really want to meet someone who knows all this about me. So even though they probably wouldn't have, I just kind of in my head didn't really put myself out there in Ireland very much before I left. And then I was happy enough to do it over there because I was like, nobody knows me. It's great. Just won't tell them what I do and
So
they don't
you
need to know,
you could
know?
you could be on Bumble and the dating apps, and people wouldn't be like, "Oh, I know you from Instagram or
Absolutely. Yeah, they
whatever."
didn't have the clue. Yeah. So,
So, what was it like dating in New York City?
oh, it's tough. It's a tough place to date. Like, it's a hobby for people for sure. And like, I don't think I had one date that felt serious or like some
No,
like, it feels like it's a fluid, like it's not been taken seriously. Whereas here, I feel like people are really want to get to know you, and you know they're looking for something long term. Whereas I feel like over there, it just doesn't feel like that.
it's just part of the game.
Yeah, it's just like spending time. You don't want to spend the evening alone.
I noticed that too. That see, everyone who goes to New York, I think it's like 33% of people who live in New York around that are from somewhere else. They're not from New York. It's not their home, and because it's so expensive, they haven't come there to live there or to meet someone. They've come
Mm,
to build their career, and that
yeah.
always takes priority, and then everything else comes in onto that, friends, and then dating and all that. But
Hmm.
it wouldn't be uncommon to meet someone who was like having a date for lunch, a date in the afternoon, maybe a date that evening. As you said, to some people in New York, it's just kind of like a hobby, a game.
Yeah, and like as you know as well, like money is not an object in New York, so people eat out like all the time. A lot of people make a lot of money. Um, yeah, do you know what I found as well was a lot of the guys that I met there were very similar, in terms of like the jobs that they did and the way they
Finance
put
guys.
themselves. Yeah, finance bros. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
that's funny. I've heard that so many times as well. But when you said that you thought that they weren't taking it seriously, were they not like, "Oh, this is great, an Irish lass here in front of me, uh, you know, this is a
Yeah,
perfect
I
girlfriend
mean,
material."
I can't even really like maybe it was me. Maybe I was the problem. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't taking it seriously, and I probably wasn't, to be fair. But I don't know. Like I think it probably in New York, it is one of those places where people come and go as well. So it's hard to imagine. It's hard to
Settling down
imagine
there.
how would you make it work. And also, like I did find the culture difference hard there.
Any disaster stories? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but just it's so entertaining when you talk to people about dating disaster stories in New York City.
Oh my God, I'm trying to think now. There was one that was really bad. I remember I went on a date and he said on the app he was 6'1" or something, and I arrived and like he was shorter than me, which I'm 5'10". So I was like, is this him? I was like, oh my gosh. And then which was fine, like we'll get over that. Like that's fine. Apparently that's what all guys do. I learned that since they put themselves up an inch or two, which is fine. But yeah, I think he was kind of drunk when he arrived, and
Oh
then he
no.
ordered food. He ordered mac and cheese for himself, and he continued to show me like just kind of bizarre things on his phone. And I was like texting one of my friends. I went to the bathroom. I was like, I really want to get out of this date. Like, what do I do? We were there 35 minutes and it felt like 2 hours.
Oh
That's how you know it's
no.
not a good date.
Yeah.
So I text my friend. I went back out and he was gone.
No,
He, he,
what?
he was gone. Yeah, and then I was waiting and I was like, is he going to the bathroom? And the bill was paid. So I was like, I was sitting and I was like, I walked down to see maybe if he was down there at the bathroom and then I texted him. I was like, did you leave? And he's like, yeah, did you not? Because I was obviously like in the bathroom kind of texting, trying to figure out like,
Oh,
what'll I
so
do?
maybe he thought that you left.
That's what he said. That's what he
Oh, okay.
said.
The
But it
poor
was
guy.
such a
Now,
relief for me because I was like, he's like, yeah, I just don't know. I didn't like, 'cause obviously, like, maybe I'm the kind of person that when I'm not into it, you can just tell all over my face. So I think he got that from me. And yeah, it was grand. I went home and had a nice chill evening to myself. It was only around the corner from my apartment at the time. So I was like, this has been a perfect ending to this date, to this
What
bad date.
what was your plan when you were in the bathroom plotting and scheming with your friends? Were you going to go out and say, "Look, my gran is sick. I have to fly back." What were you going to say?
I was gonna meet one of the girls and just find a way out, I think.
When you were there in New York City and you were living in the apartment, it seemed as everybody was following you that you were living your life. You were living your best life. With the backdrop of Manhattan, you there as a new influencer, beautiful apartment being put together. It just seemed like the dream. But were you happy?
At first, like it was so exciting. It was so exciting doing up the apartment and you know, anything could have happened, you know, and being really excited by the prospect of everything. I couldn't even sleep. I was so excited. So I was really happy at the start and I waited so long for it. But then reality kind of set in, you know, like all my family were at home, my friends were at home, and before I left, my cousin had died by suicide. So I was
Ah.
worried about everybody at home and I had to check in all the time and I felt a bit guilty, you know, and I felt guilty for being away. And then yeah, as well as that, I didn't have my friends, my core group that I've known forever. So as I said, like trying to slot into a new culture with nobody that like you've known your whole life or who really has your back and will take care of you. Like that's hard at times, you know, when you just want to sit on the couch and not talk and just be in the presence of someone that knows you. So I did find that hard. I did find that hard.
It's a very lonely city. It can be. Even though
Mm.
there's 6 million people there, you can feel like you're the only one. Did you find or suffer from that loneliness as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just did like, especially in the evenings because the time difference at home was 5 hours. So everyone would be asleep 7 o'clock when I'm finished my dinner. And I'm like, what do I do now? You know? And
Yeah.
like, obviously I was making friends and starting to make friends, but I suppose I've such a big network of people at home. So it's definitely an adjustment, you know?
And
I'm not someone
especially,
who loves sitting down and watching TV in the evening
yeah.
or, you know,
And in Midtown where you were, you would hear people outside. So you would hear people at restaurants. You might go out for a quick walk and you would see people everywhere. So it's compounded, isn't it? It really is compounded, that feeling of you're on your own there.
yeah, and then the culture there as well. Like I found whenever you're meeting friends, it always revolves around a drink,
Yeah.
which then as well is just not good for your mental health. Like when you're constantly out and tired and you know, alcohol on top of that, it's just not a good combination. I feel like it like got to me, you know, and then I did like dry January because I was like, I just need a break from all of this.
Mm.
And it was like an excuse that I could tell people, look, I'm not drinking. So let's do something that doesn't involve drinking. But it like, did you find that living there?
Yeah, definitely. And everything you say, I'm just like, okay, I know it. I know it. When I first went there, not being able to sleep, just the idea of walking around during the day, seeing the places that you wanted to work in or places you
Mm,
wanted to end up, meeting people for coffees, and just like it seemed like your dreams were always in reach or these
mm,
incredible opportunities. And then at night, your mind would just be racing with the potential and what's going to happen tomorrow, what might happen. But then there would be that thing because, like you, self employed there, you're not working in an office with coworkers, you're doing your own thing, you're a self starter, you're self sufficient, you're self employed. So already you're kind of a lone wolf doing your thing. And then in the evenings as well, when you don't have that strong group of friends, it is tough. It can be a
mm.
very lonely place. And then you start to wonder, and I don't know if you felt this too, because you were there for 7 months, but I was there for 5 years. You look around sometimes and you say, what the heck am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? Why am I paying all this money? Like, what do I really want? And you see your friends back
Mm,
home and they're moving on with their life. And
mm.
a point does come, and I think it's around the 5 year mark where you're like, what am I doing here? What am I doing in
Yeah.
New York City?
Like what do you want from your life and what are your priorities?
Yeah, like,
And
what's the
I think
goal?
when you can't find that like peace, then for me it just didn't feel like the right space. But saying that, like maybe if I'd given it more time, that would have changed. But I
Mm.
didn't have that opportunity. And I couldn't be happy where I am now, and just the lifestyle, it suits me a lot better here.
Was it by choice for you, or was it you were kind of your arm was twisted a bit because of COVID, wasn't it? Because you were living there 7 months in, COVID hit, and you were
Yeah.
faced, like so many Irish, they were shutting down the flights. And Louise Cooney had to make a decision. Am I staying
Yeah.
in New York and pursuing this dream, or am I actually just going to reverse and go back to Ireland?
Well, yeah, so I hung on. Like I didn't leave until the 28th of March, and like it got started getting serious around the 12th is when the borders closed, I think, around then. So I was there 2 full weeks after that, and it was dead. Like there was nothing happening. And I had a small group of people. So there was nothing to do. I couldn't work over there. I couldn't go and do what I had gone over there to do. And like most of my work at that point was still coming from Ireland. I had a few jobs in America, but that was all slowing down because of everything shutting down. So I just said, look, I'll go home for a month. At least I'll be able to do my work from home. And while we're all stuck inside, at least I'll have my family nearby. God forbid something happened to one of them. We didn't know how serious COVID was. So I just said, look, I'll go home for a month, pack up activewear, some loungewear, a couple of books. Off I went.
And you were still paying your rent in New York City because you
Yeah,
were
and
in a
I had
lease.
to pay it for until the end of the lease in September. And like
No.
it's so annoying, like, because I couldn't get back. But I was just so afraid of like what would happen if I didn't pay it. Like, would I never be allowed back into America?
Yeah.
Probably like drastic at the time, but I was just like,
No, well, I
I just,
mean, you default on your payments in New York City, it affects your credit and that affects kind of everything after that. But, and that's
yeah,
expensive because I'm guessing
it
that was
was,
thousands a month.
oh, look, it was crazy. Like, it was crazy. But at the same time, at least like I was at home, I wasn't paying rent. And yeah, that's all. That's it. That's all. The only bright side I've got from that one. I had to pay a fortune in rent. My friend moved in and packed up the apartment for me because she is a citizen, so she was able to come over back. But yeah, hopefully I won't have to do that ever again.
And I don't want people to think that this is negative or anything, but it's just so real because most people, when they go somewhere, they put forward a false front. Now, there's so many great things about New York, and most of the time you are having a great time. But I think it was so great, when you are honest and open and you talk about, hey, I
Yeah.
mean, this is great. There's great things about New York, but it can be a heck of a lonely place as well. And then COVID. Um,
And you know what? I just never would have expected that going back. I think going back a little bit older, my priorities had changed a little bit. My energy levels maybe had changed. I didn't want to be out every night with strangers. I wanted to be with people that I love and have the same values as me. And it takes time to find those people. Like if it was that easy to do that, then we'd move every year. It's
yeah.
not. That's why we hold important people close to us.
Yeah, as you get older as well, I find it's harder to make friends as you get older. Good
It
friends.
is. I definitely felt that. Like when I was there when I was 22, everyone was
Yeah.
everyone I met who was that age didn't care. Like free, just moved as well. Like let's hang out. Like but where all my friends, even who I met when I was 22, who were over there that long, have their group of friends. They don't want new people coming in and out. Like that's hard.
Yeah.
So it is definitely harder as you get older to make friends.
Louise, now you're back in the beautiful Emerald Isle and life is going great. And before I talk about your brands, Mark, so we spoke about the duds in New York City. These finance bros, okay, they had the money, the nice cars, but they were duds ultimately. That fool left the bar when you went to the bathroom.
Oh
Mark,
gosh.
you're 30 years of age now, is it?
Yeah.
Just turned 30?
I'm like 30 and a half.
30 and a half.
Minus two for COVID.
Is Mark, so you're 28. Is Mark around the same age or
Yeah, he's in his 30s too. So yeah.
where is he from? What does he do? And how did you meet him? If
So
you
he
met
is
him on
from
Tinder, you can pretend you met him in the library.
he's from Belfast. He works in aviation leasing and that kind of stuff, like pricing. And then he what was the other question? Where did I meet him? I met
Don't
him
try and dodge
online.
the question.
The trusty apps, my beloved apps.
The trusty apps. And how long have you been dating for now?
So we're together 2.5 years now.
2.5 years and living together as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm only asking this question, and please don't think I'm being nosy and asking questions that I've no right to know. But I know that you've talked about some of this in your YouTube video, so it's up there in public domain anyway. But someone asked you the question, is he the one?
Yeah, of course he is. He absolutely is. No, like 100%.
What is
When
it
you
that,
know, you know,
what
that's what
is
they say.
what is it that you like about him?
He is the best. We just get on so well. Like we've so much fun together, like doing the most stupid things. Like my favorite times are when we have no plans and we're just sitting on the couch laughing over nothing, Um, he's really hardworking. He's currently in the other room doing an exam and it's a Saturday. So he's extremely hardworking and he cares so much. Like he's very kind and yeah, they're probably the three things that really stand out to me.
Were you worried about it meeting someone? Because this is a problem again for our generation when, not like maybe previous generations, were so focused on careers
Hmm.
and, making it in whatever industry that we give it kind of our all in our 20s for some people. And next thing you turn around and you'd say, oh, I haven't devoted enough time to nurturing relationships, to finding someone, to taking it seriously, like in New York, where people just kind of play the game. Was it worrying you in any way?
Not really, but saying that, being completely honest, you look at your friends who are in relationships and it's so nice. Like it's so nice to have somebody to share things with and share memories with and do maybe not everything, but like look out for each other. And I love that. Like and we totally have that. It's such a different bond than you can have with anybody because they're your person. And yeah, like I think when you've spent enough time by yourself and you really know yourself and you feel comfortable by yourself and you feel ready to meet somebody, it obviously can be annoying when you're going on dates and you're like, is it me? Like what? What's going wrong here, So yeah, I was delighted. I'm delighted I've met Mark and like I think everything lined up for a reason, the way things worked out with New York and being at home and yeah, I'm happy with where we are.
And
So
I know during that YouTube Q&A, people were asking you about marriage and all that. But if people want to know more about that, they can go and watch your YouTube channel because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I want to know
yeah.
about the branding and the business. So now, people think that you're an influencer and that's all you do, but it's not, of course. Tell me about the other brands and businesses that you are operating at the moment.
Yeah. So I have sorry, I have Clue
That's it.
Active, which is
Clear your throat. Get ready for the pitch. You're like, here we go.
yeah. Clue Active,
Woo!
which is my activewear brand. It's kind of like the everyday uniform is what I describe it as. It's what you put on first thing in the morning when you were walking the dogs or bringing the kids to school or you just want to get out for a walk and be active. And it's for the everyday multitasking modern day woman who wants to be comfortable and look good and not pay a fortune. I think we've priced things quite reasonably so that it's attainable for people. And yeah, I started that. We launched in November 2021 on Black Friday, which in hindsight was a terrible decision. But
Why? Because too many orders come in?
because on Black Friday, it's when all the brands in the world are discounting. And obviously, as a new brand, that's not something you can afford or you would want to do. So
Isn't it
yeah, that's what we
amazing though,
launched.
Louise? You learn these things by doing them, and you're like, okay, well, next time we don't launch a new product or a new line of clothing on Black Friday because everyone else is
Not full price
discounting.
ones, no. Unless you're going to do a serious discount.
And how does this work? Because you have a name and you're an influencer, does a company come to you and say, look, really, we have the idea for a brand. It's our
Mhm.
vision, blah, blah, blah. We just want to slap your name on it and have you be the face of it. Or is this something where you're like grassroots? This is my idea. I need to find partners to work on this with me.
So there are companies that do that, and like that is a way of working with somebody. Say for like edits of collections with clothing brands or clothing websites, that would be how it's done. They would give you a packet to choose from, and that's your collection. I don't think you could ever call that your brand, but I've also heard of that before with other influencers, like licensing deals, more so in America than in Ireland. haven't heard of anybody really doing that in
I
Ireland.
remember Justin Bieber was on a late night talk show in America once, and he had 15 perfumes out, and the host was like, "So this is your perfume." One was called Boyfriend, and they're like, "What's in it?" And he's like, "I have no idea." He's like, "I have no idea," but
Mm.
it's different. It operates differently in Ireland, does it?
Sorry, and even saying that, no, there are definitely still there are brands in Ireland that the companies, the production companies and logistics partner would approach somebody with an idea, right? We can sell this really well. But how that would work then, say for the influencer or for whoever it is they would probably own a lower percentage than if you, well, quite a lot of lower of a percentage than if you were to if you were to do it yourself. And sorry, I totally said that wrong by saying just do it yourself because there is nothing easy about doing what I do. And also sometimes that licensing way can work for people because it allows you to do very little, only just promote it and stick your name on something.
Mm.
Obviously, if you're happy with the product and everything. Whereas, like from my side, I do absolutely everything. I do the sourcing, I have to make sure everything's up to scratch. I have to make sure that the items that I'm creating fit well, that I'm ordering the right amount of sizes, that the marketing, the packaging, the fulfillment, the social media, the everything. Like I do absolutely everything.
Wow.
So, and like I'm not somebody who's trained in logistics, supply chain, any of that stuff. So it was like one hell of a learning thing, and it's something I didn't think was as complicated as it is.
Wow. And are you sourcing from different parts of the world to, like, you're dealing with suppliers to make the jumpers, you send the
Yeah.
specifications, they send you back samples, and then you just order in bulk and you store them until they're bought?
Yeah, so I'm working currently with about four different suppliers. But I mean, ideally, I'd like to streamline that. It's difficult because you get different prices and different qualities from each different supplier. So until you have that really like perfected, you're better off keeping a couple of suppliers on the go so that you can make it work.
Do you find it difficult as well to get the good quality at the good
Sorry, one
price?
sec, I'll tell him to be
Oh,
quiet.
yeah, no problem.
Cooper, come here.
Come on,
Come
Cooper.
here.
Oh, there's Cooper.
Now,
Hey,
you be quiet.
Cooper. How long did you got Cooper in New York City, didn't you?
No, I had him for a couple of years before then.
Ah, okay. But he was with you in New York.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
I remember he was with you in some of those podcasts. And
Yeah.
but how are you finding it overall in business? Are you enjoying the transition from just being an influencer? When I say just, I know that's an incredibly difficult thing to do and a lot of work to build a brand and a following.
Yeah.
But to entering the world of business, are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I am. I am. I'm enjoying the challenge and like when you have a good day, it feels really rewarding and it feels worth it. But I'd be lying if I said there has probably been more stressful days than there has been rewarding days. That's just the reality of managing a lot of it by myself.
What's the kind of thing that could typically go wrong?
Oh my God, I've learned that there is so many things that could go wrong, that there's always something and you can never predict it. So yeah, I mean everything from customs delays to packaging to fulfillment, like how things are fulfilled and sent to the customer, to the actual running of the website. Say for our last drop that sold really well, but we had a problem with it overselling. Our systems couldn't keep up, and then I had to email each person individually and let them know that what they bought we didn't have the stock. So that's time consuming and also really disappointing for the customer that you want to retain. So yeah,
But people
there's
are
a bit of
probably understanding when at least they have communication from you and they're like, well, I can hold out until it comes in or order something else.
yeah, I think that personal touch of spending the time is worth it because they know that you are sorry and you're not just trying to, take their
Scam them.
money and run. Or you
Yeah.
like care about these
Yeah.
people. Like, and
Louise, are you running a massive scam over there? What's going on?
oh,
The other business you have, tell me about this other company as well that you've started.
so my other brand is 67 Spritz, the wine spritzer. So I do that in collaboration with West Cork Distillers. So it's made in Ireland.
Ah, yeah.
And at the moment we are in Duns and we did like an exclusivity deal with them for the first 6 months. So we launched in August last year, so August 22. And we were working on that since I think I had the first conversation about that when I was in my apartment in New York. So that's how long
Wow.
it was in the works. And then, not just now, we are moving into other retailers. So by the summer, we'll be in a couple of other places that it'll be easier for people to get. And like, it's a sparkling, like a wine spritzer. We've got two flavors. So it really is like a nice drink for the summertime. It comes in a can, it's ready to go. Yeah, it's exciting. I suppose when you think of White Claw, it's the wine spritzer alternative
Okay.
to that. And it's called 67 spritz because there's 67 calories in a can. So it's
Mm.
quite low calorie. There's no sugar, there's no carbs or gluten. It's vegan. So we kind of tick a lot of boxes with it, and there's definitely a gap in the market for it. So I'm excited to see like where that can go and what that can do. And they're two very different things, but I think they kind of complement each other very well. And I'm all about the balance. So,
You got to start shipping some of that here to Rome and Italy, Louise.
well, the plan is to export, once we have the distribution here. Well, even like probably sooner rather than later, because there is markets around the world that aren't quite as saturated in ready to go drinks as Ireland is. So if you were to come into a shop or a grocery shop in Ireland, like the fridges, you'll see there's like so many different ready to go drinks to choose from, mainly being seltzers, hard seltzers.
Mm.
Like every alcohol brand did one, and they're not all working
Yeah.
because it's hard to compete with the likes of White Claw, who are, they have the majority market share. So
So
our next
what makes you think your one will succeed where many others are not doing that well? Are you just focused on starting it here to get it eventually abroad?
Well, I suppose even up against all of these other brands and types of ready-to-go drinks, we're different. It's a wine spritzer. A lot of these are just hard seltzers. So say if you like wine, but you don't necessarily like the calories, or you don't necessarily like that it's usually 10 to 14%, ours is 5%. And it's just like a lighter alternative. But as well as that, I suppose the look and feel, the branding, they're quite luxurious and premium in their feel.
When I'm thinking about it as well, Louise, there's probably more of an incentive for you for the products to be good because you're not an anonymous business woman. You're a known influencer. So if the product is bad, it reflects badly on you too. So if your name is on it and your face is on it, you really want it to be high quality and you want it to be good because ultimately it reflects all on you.
Yeah, I have to answer to people, and like I'll be the first port of call most of the time because my name's on it and I'm easy to access online, and yeah, I care about delivering high quality. So I work really hard to do that. So I'm proud. I really wouldn't put my name on it if I wasn't. So
Final few questions, Louise, kind of fire a quick round before I let you go. And thank you for being so generous with your time because I know everyone is reaching out to you looking for different podcasts and all that. I was sitting in a coffee shop in Rome this morning and I was talking to my sister on the phone, Noreen Ann, and she's been following you for years. And I said, I'm going to talk to Louise later. Is there anything I should ask her? And she said, yeah, she's always like so happy and positive. Ask her, does she ever like just lose the rag? Does she ever just lose it?
um I do, of course. I have like bad days like everybody. But I suppose at the moment, like the place in life that I'm at, like I'm really happy. I feel really lucky, and I practice gratitude like every day. So try and keep things in perspective of, I'm very lucky in a lot of areas. So I do try and keep that in perspective, and like I mind my mental health and I do my self-care, and like of course there are days where I get upset and things are hard and things don't work out, but in the grand scheme of things, where my priorities are in my life, things are going well. So I try and keep that in perspective.
Thank you, Noreen Ann, for that deeply profound question for Louise. And the other thing I want to ask you actually is you mentioned there maybe getting upset. All the feedback you get from people, I'm sure 99% of it is really positive and people admiring you, lovely feedback. But of course, anyone who's in the public limelight, they will get kind of the naysayers and negative feedback. Do you see it? Do you read it? Does it annoy you? Does it affect you?
I try not to read it if it's in my control. I try not to, like, unless it's being said to me, it's not something that I should know about. It's none of my business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I can just imagine how difficult it can be, because sometimes this was another thing my sister was asking me about too, that when Irish people do well, there's kind of an attitude sometimes, and you hear this a lot from people who have left Ireland, went to the States. Many people who are successful over there would tell me the attitude of like, who does he think he is now that he's become or she's become successful? Um, yeah, does that ever kind of get to you, or do you ever experience that? The more successful you have become over the years, that people maybe treat you a little differently in Ireland?
For the most part, I think people get me, and they like, I think if they, especially if they watch my YouTube, they can see that I'm just like a normal person, and like I know I'm lucky and I've had good things, and yeah, I like to think I show that I'm really like appreciative and grateful for those things. But I mean, you're always going to get people who are, I suppose, begrudging or maybe just don't like you. But you can't focus on those people. You can't take that too seriously. Take it with a pinch of salt. And I put myself in this situation. So yeah, if I have a day where someone says something that upsets me, I'll kind of run it by those close to me, and they'll either tell me it's ridiculous, or maybe you need to watch what you say when you do this, or maybe you could do this differently. Like there's definitely times you can take constructive criticism from people, but if it's not constructive and it's just, I don't know, maybe just begrudging, then I just don't think there's much to take from it.
Final question, Louise. A two-part question. When you think of the future, work, life, everything, one, what are you most fearful of? And two, what excites you the most?
I'm excited for I've just moved into my 30s. I'm excited for that new chapter of a new decade and like what that brings. And I feel like I did my 20s really well. Like I'm pretty happy with what I did my 20s. So I'm excited for this new chapter, and like it's great that I have Mark and we have so many things that we want to do and so much to look forward to. And then in terms of work, I feel like I just started these new project isn't even the word, these new businesses, and I'm excited to see where we go with those and where I'll end up career-wise with that. It's very hard to tell, like at the moment, especially in the environment that we're in. Um, what am I most fearful of? Uh, like I think like everyone with getting older, I'm scared of people getting sick, and like yeah, mainly that, just with getting older, like everyone's healthy and happy at the moment in my life, and I just hope they stay like that for the next forever. Forever. Is that possible?
Forever and ever and ever. Well, Louise Cooney, continued success, wealth, happiness, and all of that stuff to you. And it's great seeing you again and getting to catch up. And me, like everyone else, we're just so excited to see what you do next. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Colin. So great to chat to you and to see you, and I'm delighted you're doing so well as well. That was so much fun. Thank you.